Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome to more microscopy and beekeeping. So these are part of the sponsored videos, and this series are being sponsored by Brunel Microscopes, and today the subject matter that we're going to be looking at, we're going to use the IMXZ stereo microscope, and that's got a zoom function on it as well, so we'll be able to get really close in. Please do take a look at their website. I'll put links down below to all the equipment that I'm using, and if you're interested in any of the equipment, please do give them a look. And if you do have a conversation with them, please mention that you've seen their equipment on my YouTube channel. Before we get started with today's session, I just wanted to share with you some photographs that one of you has sent in to me. Alexei Pace has sent in some photographs that he's taken while looking at honeybees under the microscope. I have to say, I think they're going to put my skills to shame because they're fabulous photographs, and I really wanted to share them with you. And if any of you have got any images that you've taken either of your bees or through the microscope and that you're willing to share, please do get in touch with me through my comments page on my website, and then we can share some emails. And if you send me your images, I promise to post them on one of the videos that we're going to host in the not too distant future. So this first photograph is a side-on view of the honeybee worker, and Alexei has labelled them up fantastically for us, so you can see all of these different features and body parts of the honeybee worker. I particularly like the spiracles that you can see, those tiny openings down the side of the bee. And then here we've got the forewing and hind wing, and you can see the hamuli, which are the tiny little hooks that connect the forewing to the hind wing when the bee is flying. And these are excellent photographs. And here we've got the leg of the honeybee, showing the antenna cleaner and the pollen brush. And then finally a couple of close-ups of the honeybee head, showing the compound eye. And finally we've got the partial eversion of the endophallus, and as he points out, you've got the rear of the abdomen, and if you squeeze gently on the rear of the abdomen, then you get this partial eversion of the endophallus. So those are fantastic photographs. Please, if anyone else out there has photos that they've taken, do get in touch and we'll host a whole session on sharing some photographs that you've all sent me. So let's crack on with today's session. So I thought we'd made enough pollen slides over the last couple of weeks, so a change in subject matter might be appropriate. So today I've gone out to the freezer and pulled out a frame of drone brood from a colony that we had that had become a drone laying queen, and I thought that it would be quite good to take a look at it at some point. So I popped it in the freezer in a bag, and now we've brought that inside. We're allowing it to thaw out, and we'll take a look at it in a few minutes time. There's some very interesting features on it. We've got a mixture of worker brood and drone brood. We've got some emerging bees, we've got some larvae to look at, and so I thought we could just use the stereo microscope to take a look at it and get a close-up view of what the difference between maybe worker brood and drone brood is, and have a look at some of the features that you might not normally see when you're handling a frame. So we're building up a nice set of videos now for the microscopy series. If this is the first one that you've viewed, then please do take a look at some of the others. We've got some really interesting pollen slides that we've produced over the last few weeks. Please hit the subscribe button and join the community, and don't forget to leave some comments and questions below so that we can all learn together. Certainly my knowledge of how the bee develops from egg right the way through to an adult is fairly limited, and so I'm going to refer back to some of the books that I used when I was taking my British Beekeeping Association microscopy assessment. And one of the best books that I've got for that is one by Celia Davis. It's called The Honeybee Inside Out, and it's a terrific book, and I'll pop a link down below in the description so that you can take a closer look at it, but it's got all of the details in the book that we might possibly need. I've got lots of other books as well, as I'm sure you're aware, and I'll pop links to those in the description as well. One of my favourite books is The Anatomy and Dissection of the Honeybee by H.A. Dade, and if you can get a copy of this, then it's really worth having. It's full of really fantastic information and will help if you're going to start dissecting honeybees. Then this is the book to go for. The Beekeeping Study Notes for the Microscopy certificate is also a very good book to get hold of, and it's got lots of useful tips and techniques in there. So again, I'll pop the link down in the description below so that you can go to their website and take a look at that. Okay, so this is the frame that we're going to be taking a look at. You can see that it's really spotty. We've got quite a lot of drone broods up in the corner here, and there's quite a lot of really interesting features on this. So we'll get it under the stereo microscope and take a look at it and see what I can show you. Okay, so we're straight in on that worker that was partially emerging, unfortunately, and I thought we'd start with this as it's a fairly easy subject to take a look at. And what we've got here, if I can get this small mounting needle in, so this pin that I've got is a fine insect mounting pin. So here you can see an antenna, if I can just ease it around, and you can see the segmentation in the antenna, and you can see each of the different segments within the antenna. And then obviously we have the eye structure just beneath that here. So we've got the eye here, and then at the front we've got the mandibles, and then on the other side you can also see the antenna and the eye structure. And we'll just see if we can zoom in and take a closer look at the eye. This is one of the fantastic features of this microscope, that you can get in really close. So here we can begin to see the structure of the eye itself and the way that it is formed. If I can just move this slightly to get it back into the centre. I apologise for the juddery nature of my skills. So that's maximum zoom, so that's now 40 times magnification. And let's just focus in on the structure of the eye, and you can see all of the small hairs that are coming from the eye structure. Okay, so that's the eye of this particular honeybee in situ, and we'll be able to take a closer look at the structure of the eyes when we dissect the head of a honeybee. And let's just come down and take a look at the mandible and see if I can keep it in the centre of the screen. And there you can see the mouth parts of the worker honeybee, and again covered in really fine hairs. Okay, so let's move on and take a look at the cells themselves. So I'll zoom out and then we'll just move across so that we get one of the cells in the picture. Okay, so this is at 10 times magnification, and what you're looking at here is the capping of the cell. So that's the wax capping on top of the cell, and let's just see if we can take the top of this cell off. And inside the cell you can now see that there is an immature worker bee, and unsurprisingly this is termed the purple eye stage, and you can see how the eyes are beginning to form. Okay, so you can see that this immature pupa has got the purple eye stage, and also you can just make out the start of the antenna at the front here. So this is the drone looking from the top, and here we've got the back of the eyes, which are enormous compared to the worker. And then if we move down nice and slowly, we have the thorax. The legs are already attached to the thorax, and then moving down we can see the various segments of the abdomen, and that's pretty cool to be able to see the segmentation and almost looking through the exoskeleton into the drone itself. I've moved us over onto the various stages of larvae that I've seen. So these are the larvae in the bottom of the cells, and they're at a stage where they're fairly large, and I would imagine that they're at the point at which the cells would soon be capped over, and then the larvae would undergo their transformation into adult bees. So what I've just been spending some time doing is dissecting out the front of the larvae, and what I've done is removed out all of this yellow area, and that is the stomach contents of the larvae, and it's yellow because it's pollen. And if I can zoom in a little bit, I'll see if I can find a section that we can view that is magnified sufficiently to show you the pollen grains. Unfortunately that's about as good as I can focus it, and that area that you can see there, the blotchy area, are small grains of pollen. So we could take the contents of this and make a pollen slide and determine exactly what pollen this larvae's been eating, which might be an interesting exercise to do perhaps another time. So what we'll do now is I've taken some of the various stages of the drones out of their cells, and we'll have a look at those. So what I've done is dissected out the immature forms of these larvae, and I wanted to focus particularly on the eyes because that gives you a really good demonstration of the age of the larvae as they develop. So here, this one, although it looks a little purple, this is actually a pink-eyed stage. And if I move along, I've got 4 larvae here to show you. If I move along, you'll see how the colour changes. So this one is now fairly dark by comparison to the first one. I'll just try and focus them in as I go. You can see on the right there that already the next stage is far more advanced. So if I go back to the first one, it's only just starting to develop colour, and when you look at it without magnification, it actually looks quite pink, but then as the colour develops you go into this purple colour, and then as we move to the more mature stage, you can see here this is quite dark. I imagine that that's because of the structures that are forming inside the eye. And then if we move to the final larvae, and this is almost a fully formed bee, but if I zoom in on the eye, let me just increase the magnification and then refocus. So there's a couple of things to note here. This one, if you note around the top edge, that is the casing of the old larvae. So as they change, they shed the skin and the new bee forms inside the old shell. And if I can focus it in, you can just about see, let me zoom in a bit more, and then we should be able to see the compound nature of the eye actually forming. So we're at about 30 times magnification here, and there you can see quite clearly the compound nature of the drone's eye forming, which I think is quite remarkable really. I never cease to be amazed at the wonders of our natural world, and particularly every time I look at bees, they just stun me every single time. Let's just go to the fully developed bee. So this was a bee that was coming out of its cell, and let's just have a look at the eye structure. And again, that's quite a remarkable image. Let's just zoom in, and that's looking down from the side of the honeybee, and you can see all of the fine hairs that cover the surface of the eye. And there's a pretty good example of the compound nature of the drone's eye. It needs such large eyes in order to be able to spot virgin queens and head off and mate with them. That's one of the primary reasons for a drone having such large eyes. And that's fantastic. Right, let's see what else we can see. Finally, I just wanted to go over the development of the wings. So if I can just ease up the wing structure here, you can just make out the starting formation of the wings. So you can take this wing position and go all the way back up to the thorax to where it joins the thorax, just in here. And then if we move on to the slightly more advanced stage, you can see again the wing is developing just above the legs here, and again is hinging on the thorax. And here in the purple-eyed stage, you can see that the wings have developed further, and you can see the legs beneath the wings. And you can start to make out the veins that are running down the wing structure, and also the join from the wing to the thorax. And here's the final version where the wing has developed further, and you can still make out the joint into the thorax quite nicely, the thorax here, and then coming down to the wing. And there we are. I've managed to separate it so that you can see both wings nicely separated there. And those will continue to develop until finally we have the matured drone that was on the verge of emerging from its cell. And let's just zoom in and have a look at this structure. Fantastic colours, and you can see the veins quite clearly, and that's the joint at which it joins the thorax. Not very steady, I'm afraid, but at least you get to get some idea. Well, I think I probably could have gone on for hours dissecting those drones, and I've barely touched that frame, and I didn't get to check to see whether there was any varroa in the drone cells. I'll fork some of the drone cells open and just take a look to see if I can see any varroa, and then if I do find any, I'll post those in another video. I hope you found that interesting. I always find it really fascinating looking at bees under a microscope, and I hope that this maybe encouraged you to get a microscope and take a look yourselves. Please do subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to comment down below, and if you've got any questions, please post those as well. My final thanks to Brunel Microscopes for all of their help in supplying this equipment, and we'll catch up next time with more microscopy for beekeepers. Thanks for watching.